So without even informing his officers, without even getting a formal approval, as is the case with any armed force personnel marrying a foreign national, he has to seek approval from the authorities, from the officers concerned, because unlike civilians, there is a strict code of conduct for armed forces, be it the army, CRPF, and other paramilitary forces. So strict adherence to those codes have to be maintained. And given the fact that this Pakistani national who married Munir Ahmed of CRPF, she could have access to various information, including various WhatsApp groups of the wives of CRPF personnel. So she could have been privy to many such information, which she could have in turn passed to the adversary. So given the sensitive nature of the posting of Munir Ahmed, because he had been posted in various sensitive locations across Jammu and Kashmir and other parts of the country, the decision to dismiss him from the service was taken. This was not an arbitrary decision, because there are set protocols, there are set rules that had to be followed, and NOC had to be obtained from his officers so as to get married to a Pakistani national, but he did not adhere to any of those guidelines which have been issued time to time. And also another serious allegation that is against Munir Khan is that his wife, who had come to India on a tourist visa, her visa had already expired, but he did not let her go despite her visa having been expired. So he let her stay without valid documents. So some serious allegations, serious accusations have been leveled against Munir Ahmed, and that is the reason that he has been terminated from his services. Yes.
As far as CRPF is concerned, Tejinder, action has been taken, but this particular individual had also gone to court. There was some sort of relief that had come to the fore, at least temporarily. What's the status of that?
See, the court has, though the deportation of his wife has been stayed by the court, but his dismissal, he is saying that he is going to challenge his dismissal from the services in the court as well. So far, there has been no decision from the court so far about his dismissal, and he has not received any relief from the court on this issue as well. But he maintains that he had followed all the rules and regulations. But on the other hand, CRPF sources say that he had not taken prior permission, no approval was given for him to get married to a Pakistani national, which is a serious violation as far as the armed forces are concerned. Given the fact that the Jawans and officers, they are privy to some of the sensitive information, given the heightened tension with Pakistan, and the authorities say that they had come to know about him marrying a Pakistani national only when authorities tried to deport her back to Pakistan after government issued an advisory that all the Pakistani nationals who have been staying in India on various visas have to be deported. So he had concealed his marriage. He had concealed the fact that his wife's visa had already expired. So there were certain serious accusations which have been leveled against him.
Right.
So given the fact that the sensitive nature of his posting and the current situation between India and Pakistan, this decision was taken that his services were terminated. Yes.
Right, Tejinder, thank you so much for getting us the latest on that front. The dastardly Pahalgam terror attack has unmasked Pakistan-backed terror groups. There's a new strategy that's come to the fore to spread terror in the valley. After Lashkar-e-Toiba, it's the Jaish-e-Mohammed designated as the deadliest terror group in Jammu and Kashmir. Jaish is now operating in the Union Territory via proxy groups is what we're learning. They call themselves the Kashmir Tiger and Kashmir Freedom Army. CNN News18 in fact has tracked down the new frontal faces of the Jaish-e-Mohammed and how this terror group has rebranded itself while establishing a vast network as well as carrying out several covert operations. CNN News18's exclusive investigation into the workings of these groups shows that Jaish has evolved its strategy to evade international sanctions and counter terrorism efforts. After global bans and increased scrutiny, it now operates through proxy groups, like I mentioned, the Kashmir Tigers, Kashmir Freedom Army, and that's now under the radar of the investigating agencies here in India. This is what our intelligence agencies are now looking at. Several of these members of Jaish-e-Mohammed of Lashkar-e-Toiba are now using newer strategies to evade scrutiny, but Intel agencies have caught on to what this new strategy looks like, and that's something that we are unmasking here on CNN News 18. Now, the Kashmir Tigers had claimed responsibility for the attacks in Jammu's Doda and Kathua districts in July of 2024. They had signalled their active presence since then. Jaish's key operational base seems to be in Balakot. That's what the intelligence agencies are now looking at, and that's under investigation. Pakistan's Balakot is a key operational base for JEM's activities. Specifically, the Jamia Aisha Siddiqui Islamia Madrasa. That's where all of these activities emanate from, is what agencies believe. It is managed by Abdul Majid Suleimani, a senior Jaish commander whose code name is Majid Suleimani. This madrasa spans across about 2 to 3 acres. It includes facilities like teaching rooms, a mosque and residential quarters as well. This madrasa is believed to serve as a recruitment and logistical hub for Kashmir Tigers and Kashmir Freedom Army, which are nothing but proxies for the Jaish-e-Mohammed. Plans to expand their infrastructure are also under the radar of Indian intelligence agencies. The funding of these madrasas is believed to be managed by Jaish terrorist Soleimani's UK-based brother, who channels donations from the Saudi Arabia into Pakistan. Not just that, Jaish and its offshoots maintain close ties with the ISI as well. The Refugee Management Cell, called the RMC, is in Muzaffarabad. It's under tight security of the Pakistani army. The ISI is in the know as well. The RMC provides logistical supply like groceries, safe haven to these terrorists, to these refugees as they call them, that are being shielded by the Pakistani deep state. Siddhant now joins us, getting us more details on this. Siddhant, as far as this nexus of the Jaish-e-Mohammed, the Lashkar-e-Toiba and the proxy groups that they're now using, they're trying to create newer faces, trying to create newer fronts, but none of it is going to go under the radar as far as India's agencies go.
Well, that's right, Poonam. But the whole idea of floating these new fronts is to evade international sanctions. Perhaps, now TRF stands exposed. In fact, this time around, Pakistan could manage to save TRF given its due to its membership at UNSC. Perhaps that is what Foreign Minister Ishaq Dar claimed the other day while speaking in the House. But these groups have been exposed by the Indian side, that these groups are Pak sponsored, and in fact they are working for terror groups like Lashkar-e-Toiba and Jaish-e-Mohammed. In fact, now Manoj Gupta is bringing for us that the new face of Jaish-e-Mohammed in Kashmir, they have rebranded the networks and in fact their covert operations. In fact, after global bans and increased scrutiny, Jaish-e-Mohammed now operates through proxy groups like Kashmir Tigers and Kashmir Freedom Army. So these are the two new groups. Perhaps I think this is the first time that we are breaking this information for our viewers. In fact, Jaish is going to grip through special fronts and covert infrastructure in Pakistan and Pakistan-occupied Jammu and Kashmir, Poonam. In fact, JEM has a history of rebranding under names like Khodamul Islam Al Rahmat Trust to circumvent bans. In fact, its latest avatar, Kashmir Tigers and Kashmir Freedom Army, continue its mission to destabilize Kashmir while masking their affiliation with JEM. These offshoots will operate under social covers like madrasas, Hajama Center. Islamic preaching networks are used to recruit, train and radicalize individuals while avoiding exposure. In fact, Kashmir Tigers earlier claimed responsibility for attacks in Jammu's Doda and Kathua. Balakot is a key operational base for the Jamia Aisha Siddiqui Lilibanat Islamia Madrasa in Balakot. Right. This is managed by Abdul Majid Suleimani. This madrasa spans 18 to 19 canal and includes facilities like teaching room, mosque and residential quarters. So what Manoj Gupta's story is telling us, Poonam, that given international sanction and pressure from the international community, Jaish-e-Mohammed is rebranding its network by giving them fresh names, perhaps to evade international sanctions. And these groups are very much linked with madrasas in the Pak-occupied Kashmir. Perhaps they have a proper training center, camps for them to be trained. So each time around with each passing year, these groups, whether it's Lashkar-e-Taiba or Jaish-e-Mohammed, both these groups believe in rebranding and coming up with the proxy groups and frontal groups to carry out terror attacks in India.
Absolutely. To put this in perspective for our viewers and get a sense of how exactly they're trying to do this via these proxies, this is how Jaish is trying to get a grip through social media to these fronts to covert infrastructure in Pakistan and Pakistan-occupied Kashmir. Terror groups have a history of rebranding under several names. We've seen that happening here with the PFI or the formerly banned Simi as well. That's the same kind of module that operates with all of these groups in Pakistan. They followed a similar strategy in the valley. Their latest avatars, like I pointed out, were the Kashmir Tigers and the Kashmir Freedom Army. These offshoots operate under social covers like madrasas. They have cupping therapy centers, which are fronts for terror groups. These forums are then used to recruit, train and radicalize individuals while avoiding exposure. Several of these offshoots of the Jaish-e-Mohammed continue to spread Pakistani agenda. They continue to push this kind of narrative of what they claim is mission to destabilize Kashmir. This strategy helps them to evade international sanctions, counter-terrorism efforts, which Pakistan has been at the receiving end of. All of these groups help Pakistan and the civilian administration there to escape this kind of scrutiny. There are no direct links that are seen between the deep state, the army, the ISI or these terror groups, which they believe helps them evade scrutiny. But since India's intelligence agencies have now unearthed this entire nexus, this is something that we will be confronting global forums with. Siddhant continues to be with us, getting us more details on this. Siddhant, this is extremely significant given the timing of it all, isn't it? In about 4 days from now, the International Monetary Fund is going to be hearing Pakistan's case for a bailout that they desperately need. The kind of information, the kind of dossier that India would provide about these proxy groups, about these fronts to organizations like the IMF, Pakistan is going to be a tough spot to defend that.
Well, absolutely. And in fact, this time around, the plan is to first get Pakistan included into the grey list of FATF, Poonam. Perhaps, when Pakistan was in the grey list, there were less financing of terror groups. That is perhaps going to be India's case in FATF. And as far as IMF is concerned, then yes, Pakistan is negotiating for the 25th program. And in fact, last time around also, Poonam, we saw that after America's consent and intervention, Pakistan could get the bailout. The 24th program was announced. So this time around, it's going to be a battle for Pakistan as far as IMF bailout is concerned, because Indian government, will definitely speak to the other members in the board, right. Perhaps, and also Indian government has made a watertight case against Pakistan that how the bailout money is
absolutely
being used,
and this bailout
terror,
money is extremely important for Pakistan, whose economy is in the doldrums. Do stay on with us, Siddhant. Lieutenant General Ajay Kulkarni is also with us on this broadcast. So thank you so much for speaking with us here on CNN News 18. This kind of new shapes, the transformation that we see of Pakistani terror groups, they think that they are trying to evade scrutiny and they are being successful at that, but clearly that's not the case. How can India use this as leverage to isolate Pakistan further, in your opinion?
Pakistan is the hub of terrorism. Under some garb, you'll have Jaish-e-Mohammed act as Kashmir Tigers, you'll have the resistance front to the Lashkar-e-Taiba. So it's all part of it. So I think we've got to be very careful and we must expose all of it and not let them get off the hook, because for a very simple reason, changing names does not change. Leopards can't change their spots. No? They are there, what they are. And therefore, it's very necessary to expose all these terrorist organizations and constantly keep making everybody aware that these are the kind of fronts that they're operating on. This is what they are. Actually, they are just that. And what for names, they're nothing but extensions of the Pakistan Army, the ISI. There's nothing else. The names can change. They can call themselves Mujahideen or Hizbul Mujahideen or whatever they wish to call themselves as. But they're all terrorist organizations required to be dealt with and totally eradicated for a simple reason that they are the ones where we cannot accept on whatever grounds it may be the terrorist acts by these terrorists wherever and whatever name that they may be operating.
Now, this is also used, Lieutenant General Kulkarni, by Pakistan, to try and de-link themselves from these terror groups. It's also to evade scrutiny by organizations like the Financial Action Task Force. The Pakistani administration, the country, has been on and off the grey list of the FATF, and yet we see this kind of support to terror groups in Pakistan.
Yes. You see, Pakistan may not be a part of the Financial Action Task Force, but they need to be exposed for a very simple reason that the World Bank, the IMF, scrutinize all of it, whether are they using the money given to them for money laundering or terror funding. They may be part of that, what they call the Asia Pacific group, of which even India is a part of. So we have to be constantly keeping all these people under terrific stress and expose them. There's nothing better than exposing them, because they cannot afford to be under various pseudo-names and continue to carry on with these proxy activities. All of it has to be stopped, and therefore expose them as much as we can and ensure that world over, whoever gives them, the World Bank gives them money, the IMF wants to give them money, is to tell them that the money is not being utilized for what it has been given to. It is being used only for terror funding and money laundering. And that is why they were on grey list for so many years. And now again the effort must be made to put them on grey list so that they continue to be under economic stress, because they aren't using money. And the Pakistan army has a huge $25 billion empire of their own business. So they have no business to take loans from anybody. Rather, it is better that the Pakistan army loans the Pakistan government, because after all, this is only the army which runs the entire country. So making their money and investing their terror funding, money laundering, converting this money into that money.
And that's something that India would want to expose Pakistan about at several of these global forums like the IMF, which is going to convene its meeting for a bailout for Pakistan in about 4 days from now. But Lieutenant General Kulkarni, thank you so much for joining us here and sharing your perspective. News now coming in. We're learning that series of meetings are being lined up at the Prime Minister's office. Prime Minister Modi is going to be in his office at South Block for the next couple of hours. Sources are telling us that there are hectic parleys that are underway. Remember, this follows a series of meetings that took place over the weekend that the Prime Minister held. One-on-one meetings were held by the Prime Minister with chiefs of all services, the Army, Navy and Air Force. They all met with the Prime Minister in the last couple of days. A war cabinet meeting, so to say, was also held a few days ago. Raksha Mantri Rajnath Singh, NSA Doval, the Tri-Services chiefs were all present at that meeting. Now we're given to understand that the Prime Minister is going to be at his office, at the Prime Minister's office at the South Block for the next few hours. Payal joining us, getting us more details. Payal, do we have any details of who the Prime Minister is meeting at his office?
Well, we're still awaiting to get those finer details, but we do understand, that there will be a series of meetings that the Prime Minister is going to have at his South Block office, in some time from now. The Prime Minister, in fact, just reached his South Block office just a short while ago, Poonam. And a series of meetings are expected to follow. Our sources have also indicated the Prime Minister could be there for at least the next 2 or 3 hours, holding a series of meetings with bureaucrats or the concerned officials. There is also a buzz saying that probably could have another round of meeting with people from the concerning the Defence Ministry. All that is still awaited, but a series of meetings have followed. Like you said, that there was a meeting with the Defence Secretary early this morning that we got information from the Prime Minister's office about. Yesterday also he met some service chief as well. So obviously a series of meetings are taking place. And naturally most of the meetings have taken place from the Prime Minister's residence here in the National Capital at 7 Local and Mark. But a series of meetings this evening is expected to take place at his official residence, which is of course, at his office, which is in South Block on the Raisina Hills.
Now, Payal, like you've been pointing out, several of these meetings, including the meeting with Raksha Mantri, the NSA, the Tri-Services chiefs that took place last week, all of this was done at the Prime Minister's residence. Any reason or the significance for this departure of these meetings being held at the office in South Block?
Well, we wouldn't be able to throw any light on that because, obviously it depends on, what meeting the Prime Minister really is having over here. We'll have to just still wait and get some more light on it, but we're given to understand a lot of bureaucratic meetings could be taking place at the Prime Minister's office as well. Over here in the South Block, where he's come just a short while ago as well. We have to still wait for the finer points and finer details of the meeting. As of now, all that we're doing is, Poonam, we're speculating. All of us are speculating right now because we haven't got any confirmation of sorts from the Prime Minister's office, except for the fact it is expected to be here for a couple of hours and to hold a series of meetings. Now, there is a lot of buzz that probably the NSA could also be meeting him later in the evening, and there could be other officials meeting him later in the evening. We do not really know anything about that as of now in terms of confirmation.
Right, Payal, thank you so much for getting us the latest on that front. We'll of course keep our eyes out on what transpires next. Now, speaking of what strategy India is going to employ against Pakistan, we're now learning that New Delhi is going to be asking for reforms in several international institutions. India has an idea about Pakistan misusing its membership on several of these forums. India is in regular touch with the United Nations Security Council, both permanent and non-permanent members, because remember, Pakistan is one of the non-permanent members of the UNSC. External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar has spoken to all of the non-permanent members, including Greece, which is the chair, to garner support for India's side to expose Pakistan for what they truly stand. The kind of support that Pakistan gives out to terror groups is something that India hopes to expose at forums like the UNSC. Siddhant joins us, getting us more details. Siddhant, this is a strategy diplomatically that India has employed, that a dossier is going to be prepared. India, ever since the 22nd April attack, has been speaking to diplomats, to envoys here in the country, to foreign ministers of other countries. This story is not going to be let go by India. UNSC is another forum where India plans to take this fight to.
Well, Poonam, India was very well aware about the fact that Pakistan will use this opportunity as Pakistan is a member, non-permanent member of UNSC. So Pakistan will use this opportunity to brief the other members of UNSC, perhaps to hold a closed-door meeting with the other members. So India was expecting this to happen. In fact, last time around, after abrogation of Article 370, same exercise was put in place by Pakistan. At that point in time, China had requested for a meeting on behalf of Pakistan. This time, since Pakistan is the non-permanent member, so they have done it themselves. Now, as far as India's preparation is concerned, India is very proactive. In fact, Prime Minister Modi has spoken to 4 heads of states and heads of governments of the 5 permanent members of United Nations Security Council, which are UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer, US President Donald Trump, Russian President Vladimir Putin, and French President Emmanuel Macron. At the same time, EM S. Jaishankar has been speaking with the foreign ministers of non-permanent member countries of United Nations Security Council. In fact, Greece is the chair for this month. The first call which EM S. Jaishankar made was to the foreign minister of Greece. So perhaps India was planning for this particular closed-door meet that Pakistan could hold to brief the other member countries. So India has already briefed these countries. Even India is in constant touch with them. And the whole the most bizarre thing, Poonam, here is that a country like Pakistan is a non-permanent member of UNSC, a country which supports terrorism, is being given platform to speak at the UNSC. Perhaps this is where India demands reforms in
Absolutely, and that's exactly what India is going to highlight. Siddhant, do keep a track of what transpires when that closed-door meeting of the UN Security Council happens. But for now, it's time for a quick break on this edition of Nation at 5. We'll be back in just a few minutes. Read Russia's response.
Look, I think the statement that has just been put out by the MEA and the words that have been used by the Russian president condemning the Pahalgam attack are very, very unequivocal, and they are extremely important in light of the fact that, just a few days ago we had the call between Sergei Lavrov and the foreign minister Dr. Jaishankar. He said that after that call, and also subsequently after he spoke to his Pakistani counterpart, that Russia would like to mediate if both Islamabad and Delhi ask for it, where there was a degree of sort of equivocation, if you will. I mean, they were trying to draw some kind of equity between India and Pakistan, saying that this is a long-standing dispute, it's a historical dispute, so on and so forth. I think today's statement by Vladimir Putin, as has been attributed by the MEA spokesperson, Mr. Jaiswal, clearly indicates that President Putin has taken a very, very unambiguous stand, condemning in no uncertain terms what happened in Pahalgam, and also implicit in the strong language that's been used by the Russian president is that India can and will be justifiably so, can take whatever action it deems in its national security interests. So I think it's very critical that the highest leadership in both countries have spoken on the phone. In fact, President Putin had also penned a letter to Prime Minister Modi, I think the very next day after the Pahalgam attack on the 23rd of April. He had written a letter both to Prime Minister Modi as well as to President Murmu, where again he had expressed very strong language, very strong sort of siding with India's position as far as the Pahalgam attack is concerned, and more importantly, the right to reply at a time and place of India's choosing. I think implicit in today's conversation, implicit in the language used in today's conversation, is the Russian president's almost no holds barred support to India to take whatever action it deems necessary to try and make Pakistan realize the costs of supporting these non-state actors, these terror proxies. So I think this call was extremely important. You also have to contrast this with, usually it's the Americans who make this move, right? Contrast this with what Trump has been saying. I think the last statement he made on board Air Force One, for example, where he basically said, look, they'll figure it out between themselves. And then he went on to say this is an issue that's been going on for 1500 years, even though, you know, Pakistan came into existence only 75 years ago. So the point is that I think you have to draw a comparison between the very, very unambiguous and very strongly worded statement that is now being attributed to Vladimir Putin in the conversation that he had with Prime Minister Modi, and the sort of almost wishy-washy, you know, not wanting to intervene kind of a situation or comments that have been made by Donald Trump. In fact, Vice President Vance has gone to the extent of saying that, yes, we hope that India takes whatever action it deems fit, but at the same time, we don't want this to spill over into a regional conflict of any form or fashion. Putin's statement does not qualify, whether the action should be restricted or whether the action, can be long-lasting. And of course, people will also say that, look, Russia took measures of what it felt was necessary to protect its own interests when it attacked Ukraine. And today, that war is continuing for the better part of the last 3 years because Russia, fundamentally believes that an ever-expanding NATO into Ukraine was an existential threat to Russia, was a national security threat to Russia, and therefore he took action as he saw fit, as he deemed fit. And I think he is sort of giving that license, if you will, or at least fraternity of position as far as India and Russia are concerned. He's giving that same latitude to the Indian government and to the Indian leadership to take whatever action they deem fit to be able to deter Pakistan from using these terror proxies. So I think it's an important phone conversation. The language of that conversation is extremely important, and most importantly, like I said, it sort of lays to rest all this equivocation business that's been going on, especially after Lavrov's phone call. There was some degree of concern here in foreign policy circles in India that why is Russia trying to draw some kind of a balance or some kind of an equity between India and Pakistan, saying, we'll intervene if required and so on and so forth. I think Putin's call.
Thank you for staying with us here on CNN News 18. Following the terror attack in Pahalgam on the 22nd of April, authorities have now dramatically ramped up security at all tourist hotspots. Surveillance, armed patrols, heightened checks are all now in place to prevent any further threats. Officials are assuring strict vigilance to ensure visitors' safety. My colleague Rifat brings us these ground reports from Ground Zero.
पहलगाम में हुए अटैक के बाद कश्मीर में हर तरफ से सिक्योरिटी बढ़ा दी गई, खासतौर से उन जगहों पर जहां पर टूरिस्ट स्पॉट्स हैं। हालांकि 48 टूरिस्ट स्पॉट्स को बंद कर दिया गया। मैं यहां पे हूं, ये गुलमर्ग का रोड है, आप देख सकते हैं। गुलमर्ग के लिए टूरिस्ट जा रहे हैं क्योंकि गुलमर्ग टूरिस्ट के लिए सेफ समझा जा रहा है और ओपन है। ये आप देख सकते हैं, ये गुलमर्ग है, लेकिन ये बाबा ऋषि का एरिया है। बाबा ऋषि को टूरिस्ट के लिए बंद कर दिया गया। ये बाबा ऋषि की तरफ रोड जाता है, कहीं बाबा ऋषि की तरफ टूरिस्ट ना जाएं, ये देख सकते हैं किस तरीके का नाका लगा दिया गया है और टूरिस्ट को यहां पर ही रोका जाता है और आगे जाने की इजाजत उनको नहीं दी जा रही है। चप्पे चप्पे पे सिक्योरिटी फोर्सेस को तैनात किया गया है, चाहे वो सीआरपीएफ हो, चाहे वो पुलिस हो। खाली लोकल लोगों को इस रूट पे जाने की इजाजत दी जाती है, चाहे वो बीएसएफ हो। आप देख सकते हैं किस तरीके से यहाँ पे बंकर तैनात कर दिए गए हैं। मैं विजय से कहूं कि थोड़ा सा जल्दी आए। ये सुरक्षा का इंतजाम है टूरिस्ट स्पॉट्स के इर्द गिर्द, टूरिस्ट रूट्स पे। ये आप देख सकते हैं, यहाँ पे सीआरपीएफ के जवान भी तैनात हैं और इर्द गिर्द हमें बीएसएफ के जवान भी दिख रहे हैं। वो देख सकते हैं आप, दूर से भी आपको दिखेगा। पहलगाम टेरर अटैक के बाद पूरे कश्मीर में चौकसी बढ़ा दी गई है। जगह जगह पे सुरक्षा बलों को तैनात किया गया है। कई जगहों पे नए बंकर इंस्टॉल किए गए हैं। मैं इस वक्त एक रोड पे हूं और आप देख सकते हैं किस तरीके से बीएसएफ के जवान जो हैं वो तैनात हैं और उन्होंने पोस्ट कायम किए हैं। जिस तरीके से श्री अमरनाथ जी यात्रा के दौरान सिक्योरिटी के इंतजाम जगह जगह पे किए जाते हैं, रोड्स पे किए जाते हैं, उसी तरीके के इंतजाम आज हम जगह जगह पे देख रहे हैं। नए बंकर कायम किए गए हैं सीआरपीएफ और पुलिस शहरी इलाकों में, जबकि बीएसएफ और इंडियन आर्मी जो है वो पहाड़ी इलाकों में या जंगली इलाकों में उनको तैनात किया गया है। हर आने वाले जाने वाले शख्स पे निगरानी की जाती है। जगह जगह पे सीसी कैमरास लगाए गए हैं ताकि हर मूवमेंट पे जो है वो निगरानी की जा सके। ये आप देख सकते हैं, ये फॉरेस्ट एरिया है, ये रोड है और रोड के इर्द गिर्द इसी तरीके के पोस्ट जो है वो कायम किए गए हैं। ये लोहे के ये बंकर बने हैं और जहां जहां पर भी हम नजर दौड़ रहे हैं, चाहे बीएसएफ हो या आर्मी हो, इसी तरीके के छोटे बंकर जहां पर भी पहले से ही बने थे उनको अब इंस्टॉल किया गया है और अब हर जगह पे चौकसी बढ़ा दी गई है। यानी आने वाले जाने वाले लोगों पर कड़ी नजर है। कहीं पर भी अगर कोई मूवमेंट होगी उसको इजीली ट्रैक किया जा सकता है। कोई भी सस्पेक्टेड हो आदमी उसको ट्रैक किया जा सकता है। तो ये जो पूरा एरिया है यहाँ पर अब निगरानी बढ़ा दी गई है, क्योंकि पहलगाम अटैक के बाद जिस तरीके के हालात पैदा हुए, टूरिज्म सेक्टर जो है बुरी तरह से प्रभावित हुआ और यहाँ जितने भी टूरिस्ट थे वो वापस चले गए। लेकिन अब धीरे धीरे टूरिस्ट वापस आ रहे हैं कुछ जगहों पे, हालांकि बहुत कम उनकी तादाद है, लेकिन जहां जहां पर भी टूरिस्ट जाते हैं उनकी प्रोटेक्शन के लिए, उनकी सिक्योरिटी के लिए पूरा इंतजाम किया गया है। पहलगाम अटैक के बाद कश्मीर में 48 टूरिस्ट डेस्टिनेशंस को टूरिस्ट के लिए बंद कर दिया गया। बाबा ऋषि भी उनमें से एक है। मैं इस वक्त बाबा ऋषि इलाके में हूं और आप देख सकते हैं काफी खूबसूरत इलाका है। आप देख सकते हैं सरसब्ज जंगलात इर्द गिर्द हैं। ये पूरा एरिया जो है गुलमर्ग रेंज में आता है। हालांकि गुलमर्ग टूरिस्ट के लिए ओपन है और टूरिस्ट कम ही सही लेकिन गुलमर्ग का रुख कर रहे हैं, लेकिन इस पूरे एरिया को टूरिस्ट के लिए बंद कर दिया गया है। उसके बाद से यहाँ पे पूरा कारोबार ठप पड़ा है। आप देख सकते हैं यहाँ पे जैसे सन्नाटा है। हालांकि दुकानें खुली हैं लेकिन इन दुकानों की तरफ कोई रुख नहीं करता है। यहाँ से 7 किलोमीटर की दूरी पर श्रेंज वाटरफॉल है जहां टूरिस्ट भारी तादाद में जाते थे और इसी रास्ते से जाते थे। जब यहाँ से टूरिस्ट चलते थे और इन दुकानदारों का भी उससे गुजारा होता था, टूरिस्ट चीजें खरीदते थे, चाय पीते थे, खाना खाते थे, तो उससे इस पूरे मार्केट की शान रहती थी। लेकिन अब ये पूरा मार्केट जो है डेजर्टेड लुक इसका है और ऐसे में यहाँ के लोगों का रोजगार मुतासिर हुआ है। तो फिलहाल 48 टूरिस्ट स्पॉट्स को बंद कर दिया गया है। कब तक ये हालात रहेंगे किसी को नहीं मालूम, लेकिन जहां जहां पर भी सुरक्षा का इंतजाम ठीक तरह से नहीं है वहां पर फिलहाल टूरिस्ट के लिए उन स्पॉट्स को बंद कर दिया गया है।
On that note, time for another quick break. We'll be back in just a few minutes. Do stay tuned. Read Russia's response.
Look, I think the statement that has just been put out by the MEA and the words that have been used by the Russian president condemning the Pahalgam attack are very, very unequivocal, and they are extremely important in light of the fact that, you know, just a few days ago we had the call between Sergei Lavrov and the foreign minister Dr. Jaishankar. He said that after that call and also subsequently after he spoke to his Pakistani counterpart that, you know, Russia would like to mediate if both Islamabad and Delhi ask for it, where there was a degree of sort of equivocation, if you will. I mean, they were trying to draw some kind of equity between India and Pakistan, saying that this is a long-standing dispute, it's a historical dispute, so on and so forth. I think today's statement by Vladimir Putin, as has been attributed by the MEA spokesperson, Mr. Jaiswal, clearly indicates that President Putin has taken a very, very unambiguous stand, condemning in no uncertain terms what happened in Pahalgam, and also implicit in the strong language that's been used by the Russian president is that India can and will be justifiably so can take whatever action it deems in its national security interests. So I think it's very critical that the highest leadership in both countries have spoken on the phone. In fact, President Putin had also penned a letter to Prime Minister Modi, I think the very next day after the Pahalgam attack on the 23rd of April. He had written a letter both to Prime Minister Modi as well as to President Murmu, where again he had expressed very strong language, very strong sort of siding with India's position as far as the Pahalgam attack is concerned, and more importantly, the right to reply at a time and place of India's choosing. I think implicit in today's conversation, implicit in the language used in today's conversation, is the Russian president's almost no holds barred support to India to take whatever action it deems necessary to try and make Pakistan realize the costs of supporting these non-state actors, these terror proxies. So I think this call was extremely important. You also have to contrast this with, usually it's the Americans who make this move, right? Contrast this with what Trump has been saying. I think the last statement he made on board Air Force One, for example, where he basically said, look, they'll figure it out between themselves. And then he went on to say this is an issue that's been going on for 1500 years, even though, you know, Pakistan came into existence only 75 years ago. So the point is that I think you have to draw a comparison between the very, very unambiguous and very strongly worded statement that is now being attributed to Vladimir Putin in the conversation that he had with Prime Minister Modi, and the sort of almost wishy-washy, you know, not wanting to intervene kind of a situation, or comments that have been made by Donald Trump. In fact, Vice President Vance has gone to the extent of saying that, yes, we hope that India takes whatever action it deems fit, but at the same time, we don't want this to spill over into a regional conflict of any form or fashion. Putin's statement does not qualify, whether the action should be restricted or whether the action, can be long-lasting. And of course, people will also say that, look, Russia took measures of what it felt was necessary to protect its own interests when it attacked Ukraine. And today, that war is continuing for the better part of the last 3 years, because Russia, fundamentally believes that an ever-expanding NATO into Ukraine was an existential threat to Russia, was a national security threat to Russia, and therefore he took action as he saw fit, as he deemed fit. And I think he is sort of giving that license, if you will, or at least fraternity of position.
Welcome back. You're watching Nation at 5. We have some breaking news that's now coming in. Telangana Chief Minister Revanth Reddy has come out and claimed that the state's financial situation is close to bankruptcy. He stated that the government is not able to raise even a single rupee in loans anywhere. He said that such a situation, instead of extending cooperation, there are strikes by employees that are being warned, and that's not appropriate. In fact, he's gone on to warn these employees of the state government to not come out and strike, and supports the government in what seems to be a situation of dire financial stress. PV Ramana, my colleague, now joins us, getting us more details. Ramana, as far as Telangana is concerned, it's one of those Congress states where 5 pre-poll guarantees were made. This is not the first time that the Chief Minister has come out and highlighted the financial stress the state faces.
Yeah, Poonam, as you said, Telangana Chief Minister Revanth Reddy confessed the Telangana's financial position. He said that state's financial position is nearer to the bankruptcy, because he mentioned that he's not getting a loan of even single rupee from the financial institution. If he is asking for the appointment of the financial institution, they are looking at him as a thief, and he said that even he is coming to even to take away his chapel also. That's what exactly comment from the Chief Minister of Telangana, Mr. Revanth Reddy. And moreover, he said that he requires 22,500 crores per month, and he is having only 18,500 crores only. He is not at all doing anything with the financial situation of the state. Moreover, he is asking the employees, because the employees and RTC workers is very much unhappy with their long pending issues. They are very nearer to give the strike notices also. In these circumstances, CM Revanth Reddy clearly mentioned that the state he wanted to explain the financial situation of the state, because as of now in his tenure in the 1 year 4 months of his tenure, he got the loans of around 1,58,000 crore rupees. From that, he repaid the loans of 1,52,000 crores. He repaid the loans, and remaining 4,000 plus crores were used for state issues, for the state development only. So whatever the welfare schemes, whatever the promises they made in the election manifesto, accordingly they are going forward, and he is asking the employees also. We are paying this much of amount for the salaries and this much of amount for the welfare schemes, and remaining, where is the amount? Show me. From whatever the amount remains, you can take whatever things you want. This is what exactly promised from the Chief Minister of Telangana, Mr. Revanth Reddy. I have to see how the government employees and RTC employees will react on that. But moreover, opposition parties already slamming the government, is saying that they wanted to escape from the promises which they made in the election manifesto, and as well as of now they came up with some promises like a free bus to the women and the loan waiver, farmer loan waiver, and moreover the financial assistance to the farmers, which also partially done, partially it is implementing. So for that only they are not having the proper financial situation for the state. As of now they are getting only 18,500 only. So what to do with the remaining, how to get the remaining, that's what a big question.
So it will be interesting to see how the opposition in the state of Telangana responds to this. But Ramana, thank you so much for getting us the latest on that front. Shifting focus now to singer Sonu Nigam, who's come out and issued a clarification. This is after an FIR was filed against him. He says he will comply with whatever is expected out of him legally. He's issued another clarification on the calls that are coming in over action against him. He says he's not a young lad to take humiliation from anyone and that he's ready to cooperate. So that joins us, getting us more details. So that there's a long statement that Sonu Nigam has issued. If you could take our viewers through it.
Well, yes, he has issued a very long statement. In fact, this is the second such clarification that you're seeing from Sonu Nigam. After a recent video that he released, that still did not go down very well with the people of Karnataka, including pro-Kannada groups and the general film fraternity as well, with the Karnataka Film Chamber of Commerce, saying that he should have at least issued an apology. But right now, as an FIR has been registered, and the Karnataka Film Chamber of Commerce is even, making plans to issue a complete non-cooperation against Nigam, seeing that he's not employed in any of the movies, or his services are not availed in any of the movies or by any of the film producers. He has, mentioned and has given a detailed clarification now, a written clarification, an open letter. He says that he's not a young man anymore, he's not a lad anymore to face any sort of humiliation, and that he's a 51-year-old man right now, someone who is in the latter half of his life, and he cannot just tolerate what was there. But he also goes on to say in the early part of the letter that in fact he reveres Kannada and the Kannada songs that he has sang more than any other languages. He takes a little bit more of a very apologetic tone in this regard. He says that he does revere Kannadigas a lot, and that he reveres the Kannada songs that he has sang. But he also goes on to say, reacting to the FIR that has been registered against him, saying that he would comply in any way, that he had full trust in the Karnataka police and the legal system, and that he would comply in any way possible. So he has issued a long clarification again.
Right. So thank you so much for getting us the latest on that front. It is time for a quick break on this edition. Read Russia's response.
Look, I think the statement that has just been put out by the MEA and the words that have been used by the Russian president condemning the Pahalgam attack are very, very unequivocal, and they are extremely important in light of the fact that, just a few days ago we had the call between Sergei Lavrov and the foreign minister, Dr. Jaishankar. He said that after that call, and also subsequently after he spoke to his Pakistani counterpart, that, Russia would like to mediate if both Islamabad and Delhi ask for it, where there was a degree of sort of equivocation, if you will. I mean, they were trying to draw some kind of equity between India and Pakistan, saying that this is a long-standing dispute, it's a historical dispute, so on and so forth. I think today's statement by Vladimir Putin, as has been attributed by the MEA spokesperson, Mr. Jaiswal, clearly indicates that President Putin has taken a very, very unambiguous stand, condemning in no uncertain terms what happened in Pahalgam, and also implicit in the strong language that's been used by the Russian president is that India can and will be justifiably so, can take whatever action it deems in its national security interests. So I think it's very critical that the highest leadership in both countries have spoken on the phone. In fact, President Putin had also penned a letter to Prime Minister Modi, I think the very next day after the Pahalgam attack on the 23rd of April. He had written a letter both to Prime Minister Modi as well as to President Murmu, where again he had expressed very strong language, very strong sort of siding with India's position as far as the Pahalgam attack is concerned, and more importantly, the right to reply at a time and place of India's choosing. I think implicit in today's conversation, implicit in the language used in today's conversation, is the Russian president's almost no holds barred support to India to take whatever action it deems necessary to try and make Pakistan realize the costs of supporting these non-state actors, these terror proxies. So I think this call was extremely important. You also have to contrast this with, usually it's the Americans who make this move, right? Contrast this with what Trump has been saying. I think the last statement he made on board Air Force One, for example, where he basically said, look, they'll figure it out between themselves. And then he went on to say this is an issue that's been going on for 1500 years, even though, you know, Pakistan came into existence only 75 years ago. So the point is that I think you have to draw a comparison between the very, very unambiguous and very strongly worded statement that is now being attributed to Vladimir Putin in the conversation that he had with Prime Minister Modi, and the sort of almost wishy-washy, you know, not wanting to intervene kind of a situation or comments that have been made by Donald Trump. In fact, Vice President Vance has gone to the extent of saying that, yes, we hope that India takes whatever action it deems fit, but at the same time, we don't want this to spill over into a regional conflict of any form or fashion. Putin's statement does not qualify, whether the action should be restricted or whether the action, can be long-lasting. And of course, people will also say that, look, Russia took measures of what it felt was necessary to protect its own interests when it attacked Ukraine. And today, that war is continuing for the better part of the last 3 years because Russia, fundamentally believes that an ever-expanding NATO into Ukraine was an existential threat to Russia, was a national security threat to Russia, and therefore he took action as he saw fit, as he deemed fit. And I think he is sort of giving that license, if you will, or at least fraternity of position as far as India and Russia are concerned. He's giving that same latitude to the Indian government and to the Indian leadership to take whatever action they deem fit to be able to deter Pakistan from using these terror proxies. So I think it's an important phone conversation. The language of that conversation is extremely important, and most importantly, like I said, it sort of lays to rest all this equivocation business that's been going on, especially after Lavrov's phone call. There was some degree of concern here in foreign policy circles in India that why is Russia trying to draw some kind of a balance or some kind of an equity between India and Pakistan, saying, we'll intervene if required and so on and so forth. I think Putin's call sort of puts the nail on that head.
And it does leave Pakistan in an embarrassing position, isn't it? Because their foreign minister, their envoy to Russia, all knocked on the doors of Russia, hoping that they would mediate, take a side. And when Russia did take a side, they decided to choose India's.
Sorry, I couldn't hear you clearly. I mean, I'm just going to say that, look, I think it's important to draw a distinction.
Namaste, Jai Hind, and welcome to Take 3 Shots. I'm Anand Narsimhan, with me Zaka Jacob and Rahul Shivshankar. And quickly, let's just bring you up to speed as we speak what's happening. Prime Minister Narendra Modi is in the South Block. He met with the Defence Secretary earlier in the day. Now he's having a series of meetings and he's going to be spending some time. Now there is this something in the air, as Rahul Shivshankar put it, that something's going to happen. Now, all of Bharat is waiting for some kind of kinetic action or punitive action. We'll come to that in a bit. But there is also other things that are happening, and let's look at the geopolitical aspects. Starting with the Iranian foreign minister in Pakistan. There is a statement that's been put out by Ishaq Dar's team out there that's floating, doing the rounds. We'll wait for the Iranians to come out and say why they are there. There is indications from Turkey, China, the only nation along with Pakistan in the UNSC which did not support, unconditional support to Bharat. 13 out of the 15 nations backed Bharat. Pakistan's move there as one of the temporary members at this point to have an open door discussion also failed, also thwarted. So at different points it's getting setbacks. But Zaka, let's start with you and understand Iranian FM visiting at a time when Shehbaz Sharif has cancelled his visit to Malaysia. What does this indicate? Are the Iranians there to try and tell Pakistan behave because of the problems they have at their backyard? Or should Bharat look at this and say, are the Iranians backing the Pakistanis?
No, I don't think the Iranians are backing the Pakistanis. I think this was a pre-decided visit. Mr. Arakchi, the foreign minister, is going to be here in Delhi as well in a couple of days' time. So this was a pre-decided visit. But obviously, because it comes in this backdrop and after the Pahalgam attack, obviously he becomes one of the senior ranking officials of a major country in the region and beyond to be going to both Islamabad as well as to Delhi. So the first thing is, as you would expect, you would expect any visiting dignitary to convey that message that, look, while we understand what happened and while we understand that India has a right to defend itself, it shouldn't spill over into a wider regional conflict. Everyone is worried about that. You heard what J.D. Vance said over the weekend, that we recognize that India needs to do something, but we're concerned that it doesn't spill over into a wider regional war. Now, I don't think even India wants a wider regional war, because it's not in India's interests for this to be a big flare-up like we've had 3 times in the past. The issue is, I think what we're now beginning to see, Anand, is sort of the cookie is beginning to crumble. We now know which are the countries that are going to back Pakistan, either overtly or covertly. Certainly, Turkey will, because it's now sent this corvette. It's an anti-submarine warfare ship. It's the Milgam class, which... So the deal that the Pakistanis have with Turkey is they'll build 4 ships, 2 of which will be built in Turkey and 2 will be built in Pakistan. So it's a similar class of ship that's going there. Again, the defense that they've put out is, oh, this was pre-decided, it's going to Malaysia for some multinational exercises and so on and so forth. But again, the timing, the context is important. And you add to this all the rumors last week about Turkey sending this C-130 military transport aircraft and speculation that there were military supplies. Of course, the foreign ministry there has denied that. But, I think what we're beginning to see, big picture, is the countries that are going to support Pakistan or are supporting Pakistan, or in the event there is a flare-up between India and Pakistan, are mostly Islamic countries. So Turkey, Iran to an extent, Malaysia. And I think they have drawn that sort of common thread.
But you know this also, right? Within the OIC of those 56, 57 nations, this Turkey, Pakistan, Malaysia axis has always trying to break away and trying to create a separate league of their own and try to split the OIC, which has been largely driven by the Saudi Arabia and UAE. They are the ones who actually dictate the Muslim world. So that's one part. The other thing is they want to build 4 ships. Can they even pay for them, Rahul Shivshankar? These ships are not built overnight. It's about a few years, if not a decade. So that's another part. Pre-decided programs, will you read more into it? How would you see that before we move on to the next development?
Look, the world doesn't stop, right? The world doesn't stop. India has its own engagements. We've just seen the Prime Minister extend an invite to President Putin, who called him about 3 hours back and says, look, you must come later in the year for an important multilateral conference. And Putin has accepted that. Now, are we going to say that? Look, but what I'm seeing, as Zach says, that there are some people who are willing to stand with Pakistan for whatever interest serves their purpose and cause. Obviously, there is a bit of a, look, I mean, there is with Turkey, there is this aspiration that it should be the leader of the Islamic world. Iran, on the other side, has a problem with Turkey. Don't forget that some of these countries, from even their sort of demographics, actually are potential countries that won't get along. So, I'm not going into the Sunni Shia thing, but there is those chasms.
Themselves believe.
But you know what I am looking at quite interestingly, and it's something that has struck me. The Ukraine war forged an axis between China and Russia. It brought them very close together. Now, these Indo-Pak tensions, it seems to be having a slightly different effect. The Chinese are speaking in a different tone. President Putin has come out in complete support. The Chinese are sitting in like the Pakistan camp. And I'm seeing an interesting sort of tension building up there.
Well,
I'm not saying that this is something that we have to immediately sort of flag, but it's an interesting sort of decoupling that might happen, and it'll be interesting to see how that goes.
Just to add to that, but the irony is, this week Russia will be celebrating the 80th anniversary of what they call the Victory Day parade. It's a big thing in Moscow, and I know that the Russians had wanted Prime Minister Modi to come for it as chief guest, even before Pahalgam had happened. These moves had happened a few months ago. for whatever reason, maybe scheduling reasons, they were not able to work that out. And now Xi Jinping is going to be the chief guest for the Victory Day. And you will hear the familiar stuff about, it's a no limits partnership. Even the sky
in
is
fact,
not
even the RM is not going.
No,
Yeah,
but
even-
I think
that's because of Pahalgam.
Yeah, post
Because of what
Pahalgam,
happened.
so they're not going. But the fact is, 1971, Russia, China, America were all involved, and they took different positions. 1965, Russia, China, America were involved. They took different positions, but still the RIC bloc works. The Russia, India, China bloc works. So they have their own strategic interests. Vladivostok has seen Russia and China at in each other's crosshairs. So that's also happened. But somewhere there will be nations who do not want an escalation, nations who want the India-Pak hyphenation happen, and India has to buck that, because we've been trying to rise above that hyphenation for the last 7-8 years, very actively trying to bridge, say that there's a huge gap and don't hyphenate us. Other nations believe this hyphenation helps us strategically. We'll try and go across to Payal Mehta in just a bit. We'll try and get her back because this development was happening here. Series of meetings that are happening in this in the Prime Minister's office. Key meeting at the South Block. Now he meets individually the service chiefs through the week, over the weekend, and now he's meeting the NSA Ajit Doval in South Block. Now, is something in the air, series of meetings with the PMO, or is this perhaps not just to reassure the nation, Rahul Shivshankar, but also to tell the enemy, you can't rest, you can't sleep, you've burned 5,000 crore already, burn a few more of whatever limited reserves you are before we decide to strike. Payal Mehta joining us with more. Yes, Payal, so series of meetings in the South Block.
Well, it's a day as usual as far as Prime Minister Modi is concerned, given the fact, Anand, that he has multiple meetings lined up, today in the South Block office is what we're given to understand. And also the fact that the Prime Minister has in fact, also held a series of meetings this morning as well. So obviously, what we're given to understand is that NSA Ajit Doval is currently in the Prime Minister's office. Senior bureaucrats from the government are currently at the Prime Minister's office. We have to still wait to see what the exact detail of the meeting really was, but there's no smoke without any fire. And of course, the series of meetings that have followed through yesterday and day before yesterday are an example enough that the Prime Minister probably is holding a series of important meetings. And what our sources in the Prime Minister's office have told us, Anand, is that the Prime Minister is expected to be at South Block at least till 9:30 this evening.
So a lot of meetings that are happening. So something is being planned. What's being planned, we don't know. Rahul Shivshankar believes something is in the air, something's got to give. Zaka believes that the nation wants something physically or palpable, something that they can see.
Visible.
Real, right? So which they can see that this is punitive action that's been taken. But there is a lot of action, Zaka, that's been taken already. The drying up of the rivers, the blocking of the Bagliar Dam for the first time since the 60s. It's a never before for India to move on with their Kishan Ganga Rattle projects and some of the other projects and say, listen, Indus Water Treaty is in abeyance. We are acting, and no post and parcel, no exports, no airspace closed. So all of this is hurting the Pakistanis somewhere.
Yeah, I think the water one is the most important one, because it had never happened before from 1960, since the IWT came into existence, and despite the fact that we had 3 wars after that, neither country, neither India nor Pakistan, had pulled out of the treaty or put it in suspension, put it in abeyance. And I think the ground report that our colleague filed from Baglihar, which basically shows, in the 10 days after the decision was taken to suspend the IWT, the riverbed has just gone dry. I mean, people are walking on that riverbed, which used to be full of water till 2 weeks ago. So I think that clearly shows that this is going to be a very mean summer for Pakistan.
And when we can't hold the water, we'll release it.
We release it all in one go.
Which means that when the sowing has taken place,
Kharif is round the corner.
Exactly. Then that will sort of
Kharif sowing is round the
crop.
corner. You need to have steady flow water, suddenly drying up, suddenly huge amounts of inflow. It's going to disrupt the entire food bowl of Pakistan. That's the level to which we've taken the escalation up, viewers. Quickly going to Arun Danta. He's got more updates. A series of meetings. He's going to be there till about 9:30. Arun, what are the meetings that are scheduled?
Well, Anand, there is no information about the meetings with with Prime Minister, who all are going to meet Prime Minister. But we just saw that Ajit Doval leaving the Prime Minister's office. Of course, we're given to understand there will be certain meetings, but who all are going to come here? There is no specific details about those meetings. But of course,
how long did the meeting with the NSA last? Do we know that quickly?
Yes, Ajay Doval just left. I think he was with Prime Minister for 15-20 minutes here in PMO, and 5 minutes back his convoy left the Prime Minister's office, and of course the other secretaries and the officials are present inside the PMO. Perhaps Prime Minister will be, of course, meeting them, and who all others are going to be come to here, we do not have any idea about this, but we are expecting that there will be some meetings which will take place here at Prime Minister's office.
Well, are they driving up the non-kinetic escalations a little further up and keep Pakistan on the boil and perhaps bring the enemy to a crawl financially before really moving into deliver the killer blow? We have to wait and watch, but that's all we have time for on the Take 3 shots. Thank you, gents. Over to Shivani for Plain Speak.
Welcome everyone. Thanks a lot for staying with us. You're watching Plain Speak with me, Shivani Gupta. With tensions between India and Pakistan escalating and Pakistan running pillar to post, seeking refuge, global allies have been forced to pick sides. Of course, this is something that the Indian government is monitoring very, very closely, and of course, they will be able to discount some of these expressions that are coming in from various sides. As far as India is concerned, it is not letting off the pressure on Pakistan when it comes to its own policies. Remember, from the Prime Minister to the entire cabinet, they have talked about how they're not going to let down the pressure. Of course, they have also mentioned a lot of the kinetic actions that could follow, at least they're indicating to it. But in the aftermath of the Pahalgam terror attack, dealing another blow where it hurts the most on Pakistan has been India's water policy. India has cut off water flow from the Bagihar Dam on the Chenab River and is also preparing to taper down runoffs from the Kishan Ganga project on the Jhelum. Following through on its decision, as it was announced last week, to not allow even a single drop of water to go to the rogue country from the Indus rivers. India has answered Pakistan's fiery nuke threat with water after all. Not only this, India is also planning to revive as many as 6 river projects that have long faced opposition from Pakistan in the Chenab River, now that the Indus Water Treaty is finally under abeyance. The escalation of the water strike on Pakistan follows a long list of diplomatic actions as well that have been taken already. But this is just the beginning. With the Indus Water Treaty in abeyance, India is no longer required to give 6 months notice to Pakistan before starting any new project. And here's what India is planning to do. Highly placed sources have informed CNN News18 that the government will now move to resume work on completion of stalled projects in Jammu and Kashmir. New projects will be initiated on Chenab and Jhelum rivers, and the revival of the Vular Lake project is also on the cards. With Bagihar Dam in Ramban already checked off the list, India is now mulling action over Kishan Ganga Dam on the Jhelum River. At the Bagihar Dam, India has already cut off the flow of water. After a week of discussions and hydrological testing, India began desilting operations in this dam and has lowered the sluice gates, reducing the downstream flow to Pakistan by almost as much as 90%. So this is as far as the Bagihar Dam is concerned. But as I mentioned, similar measures are being mulled in connection to Kishan Ganga Dam on the Jhelum, the first mega hydropower plant located in the northwestern Himalayas in the Gurez Valley. This will also undergo massive maintenance work very soon, is what the sources are telling us, and all of the flow from it downstream will be halted. Now, these are exactly the projects that Pakistan had objected to as far as the treaty was concerned. Now, the 6 major rivers between India and Pakistan are divided into eastern and western rivers. On the western front, Indus, Jhelum and Chenab have been allocated to Pakistan, and on the eastern front, you've got the Beas, the Ravi and the Satluj, from which India is allowed to keep the water. So this is the situation as far as these rivers are concerned, emanating some from Tibet and other areas, running through Jammu and Kashmir, some in Punjab, etc. And then finally the water flowing into Pakistan. Now India is planning to resume work on 6 projects on the Chenab, as I said. First, the Sawalkot project, a proposed run-of-the-river hydroelectric power project in Ramban and Udhampur districts. The project is currently in the permitting stage and is expected to be commissioned later this year. Pakaldul, an under-construction concrete face rock-filled dam on the Murusudar River, a tributary of the Chenab in Kishtwar district. The primary purpose of this dam is hydroelectric power generation. Let's talk about Rafale as well. This is also a run-of-the-river hydroelectric power station with permitted pondage under the Indus Water Treaty, currently under construction on the Chenab once again. The Bursar Dam, a proposed 265-meter high concrete gravity dam and 800 megawatt hydroelectric power project on the Murusudha River, the national project designated by the government and was intended to be India's first storage water under the Indus Water Treaty. Let's also tell you about the Kiru project. The Kiru hydroelectric project, run-of-the-river scheme proposed in Chenab, in Kishtwar, and is one of the projects that faced stern opposition from Pakistan. Remember, before this treaty was put under abeyance, the two sides used to meet regularly and objections to projects in India were raised by Pakistan in the past. But now India has no courtesy to give to Pakistan anymore as far as the planning and the execution of these projects is concerned. Finally, the Kirthai 1 and 2 project, both hydroelectric power projects located in Kishtwar and in the pre-construction stage right now. What we know from the government is they're going to accelerate both the planning and the construction of these projects. Now, everyone in India is already in agreement that this treaty was unfair to India to begin with. Just imagine the possibilities if this water was available for Indian cities instead. Up till water-parched Bhuj, from Jaisalmer, Bikaner to Churu, to Agra, to Meerut, all of this water can actually now finally be used for Indians' benefit if India manages to build connecting canal systems quickly. And this is why many felt that it was unfair to divert 80% of the water of those rivers to Pakistan to begin with. The question is whether India can build its systems quickly enough so that now Indian citizens can be benefited. Already voices in Rajasthan, Punjab, Haryana have talked about while they suffer a water shortage, why should all of this water be allowed to go to Pakistan? Now, India is all poised to revive these water projects, but this is also a bid to leave Pakistan watery-eyed. This is a strike that is being considered one that will hurt Pakistan the most. That's coming up with our guests.
देखिए, पहले वाटर स्ट्राइक, उसके बाद इकोनॉमिक स्ट्राइक और उसके बाद डिप्लोमेटिक स्ट्राइक, ये 3 स्ट्राइकें भारत ने की है और वक्त की जरूरत है।
चिनाब का पानी का कम होना जो है इस बात को जाहिर करता है कि गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया ने जो इकदाम लिए थे उनके असर जो है वो विजिबल होना शुरू हो गया है।
ये जो इंडस जो वाटर ट्री जो एग्रीमेंट है, ये जो सस्पेंड ये 60 साल पहले होना चाहिए था, जो कि नरेंद्र मोदी जी ने आज 75 साल के बाद जो सस्पेंड किया, हम उसका वेलकम करना चाहते हैं।
Let's go across to our guest joining us, Lieutenant General Sanjay Kulkarni, former DG Infantry of the Indian Army. Suresh K. Goyal is former diplomat, and Sant Kumar Sharma, author of Indus Water Stories, also joining us. I begin with Suresh Goyal first because, you know, we're going to see some sort of voices rise against what India is planning to do as far as these underwater projects are concerned, the abeyance of the treaty are concerned. How well placed do you think India is to negate any pressure that comes on this front? Because in Pakistan too, some of the most inflammatory statements have come on the Indus Water Treaty and not anything else.
You have put me in a very difficult position by starting your statement by saying that there are also dissenting voices from India to the action on the IWT.
Not from India, sir. I mean internationally. Please pardon me and let me clarify myself if there was any confusion.
No. I want to say something here.
Yes.
See, I'm not an expert on the Indus water treatment. But as soon as India had abandoned or put the treaty in abeyance, I do not know what that means really, putting it in abeyance. But either way, I would assume that the treaty is not functional anymore.
Yes.
And therefore, India is free to take a decision on the water sharing or not sharing, either way that it wants. I had also said at that time, the very first day when this decision was taken, that river waters are not like a civilian or a usual water pipeline, that somewhere you will shut the tap and the water will stop. It requires extensive preparation. We need to build barrages, we need to build dams, we need to build structures to be able to use the excess water. If you're stopping the water from going to Chenab, the water must be collected somewhere else.
No, so that's what I'm saying. Let me just replay those graphics, because the information we have from our government is that now some of the projects that maybe were envisaged at one stage but were never committed to are being committed to now. So India is going to build up those, dams, etc. My question is, how much opposition could India likely face if it was to execute all of these programs?
Shivani, I saw all the visuals. Now, my point simply is that these kind of infrastructural works take time. And therefore, the idea, my sense is the opposition will not be to India putting in abeyance the Indus Water Treaty. But I think the difficulties we face might arise from not being prepared to use the excess water that we will have, or by having sufficient infrastructural works on the ground to be able to stop the water causing backflows. Now, I was in Laos, let me put it this way, where they were building a 3 billion gigawatt dam on the Mekong River. When they were building the dam on the Mekong River, the water that accumulated in the reserve at the back, it caused evacuation from practically an area equal to 1/4 of Jammu and Kashmir. So I'm only mentioning that as a kind of an example that it needs time to prepare, it needs time to do. And therefore, I welcome that they're doing it. But I'm sure there will be difficulties back at home. And I do hope that these difficulties do not deter the government of India now to backtrack from the decision and say that, all right, till such time as we have the infrastructure, let the water go into Pakistan. It's not at all unlikely, because if you have a flood situation back at home, some measure has to be taken.
No, absolutely. So what we learn as far as the situation right now is concerned, that the water is being controlled in a manner that Pakistan cannot see coming. So water, certainly in Akhnur, etc., the water levels dropped after the Bagliha Dam closed its gates over the last 24 to 48 hour period. Of course, that water will eventually have to be released, but Pakistan will have no prior notice, can expect no prior notice from India to prepare on such a situation, neither on the projects that are being built. Sant Kumar Sharma is in fact an expert on the Indus Water Treaty. How do you see India's plans that we've accessed to build all of these projects, hydroelectric but also water holding projects?
Yes, for us to be, the first thing is we need to start with the hydroelectric projects which have been slowed down or which had created problems. I will take one example, that of Rafale, which was inaugurated by Prime Minister Manmohan Singh on May 29, 2013, and it was to be completed by 2018. So we have already lost 800 megawatt of power per annum for the last 6 years because of Pakistan's objections. That is the type of loss it causes by its objections. So we have to just set it aside, all objections by Pakistan dismissed, and just what we have decided now to keep the treaty in abeyance and do what we have to do. Pakistan is very fond of doing one thing. When it comes to the face of it, or the public face, its public face is a lot of extremism. Just remember, let me take back you to Musharraf era. Musharraf upstaged Nawaz Sharif in 99, and in December 99, 3 months later, there was the Indian Airlines hijacking. And Jaish-e-Mohammed was then born, and Jaish-e-Mohammed continued all around, going berserk. And Musharraf was all smiles and all pleasant person, all liberal when in public, but otherwise all Pakistani generals, all Pakistani politicians, they present a pleasant face that they are liberal, but when it comes to their conduct, they always use extremism as their last strategy. So this has to change. They cannot do one thing, they set fires and then expect that they will not burn.
Yes.
They have to burn in these fires.
How much pressure do you think any international agency, including the World Bank that so-called negotiated this treaty, can put on India on India's plans, Mr. Sharma?
The point is, what way can they put pressure on us, one, and how can they ensure compliance of what they prescribe? There is no way, there is no mechanism with the World Bank to force us. We are not taking any loans from World Bank that they will stop those loans and coerce us into doing what they want. What World Bank has always failed to do, there is dispute redressal mechanism at 3 levels: Permanent Indus Commission, then neutral expert, and then the Court of Arbitration. World Bank has never envisaged this thing, how foolish it was acting when it started the process before the neutral expert as well as Court of Arbitration. This condition of simultaneous processes is not conceived anywhere, not talked of anywhere in the treaty.
Right.
Now, what World Bank has itself done, how can it set things right, or how can it say or tell us that you cannot do this? You did something, we only responded to.
Okay.
And our response has been measured. Our response has not been disproportionate. This is one thing they deserve to, because ultimately, for too long, in 2005, in 2004, all the Pakistani extremist groups, Hafiz Saeed and all these people, they used to go on the public platforms and say, "Humko Kashmir jeetna hai. We need Kashmir because Kashmir, all the headwater, all the heads of the rivers that come to Pakistan and irrigate it come from Kashmir."
Yes.
They always said that we need to take Kashmir. So now we are giving them back to Kashmir. We are giving them Kashmir on a platter by drying the river. And there will be an alternative flood. I tell you, in the future, there will be an alternative. There will be some days when the rivers will go dry, and there will be other days when the rivers will be flooded. So Pakistan will never be able to predict what is going to come and what it is going to be hit by.
Right, absolutely. Which is the strategy that India is now employing? Lieutenant General Sanjay Kulkarni, you must have heard some of the voices that have come in, or the threats that have come in from Pakistan, particularly on the abeyance of the Indus Water Treaty. How do you look at those?
I think, Shivani, it's very essential that irrespective of what Pakistan says, time has come now to teach Pakistan a lesson. And the best way of teaching them a lesson was to be able to tell them that, look, water and blood can't flow together. Since 1960, irrespective of what they had been doing in 65, 71, Kargil, and subsequently, and all the terrorism that emanates from Pakistan, this is the time to be able to tell them. And I think they can be nothing better. We are just holding the treaty in abeyance. All that we've done is delay, divert, and distribute at a time and point when we want to distribute the water. If they think that they can only be responsible for terrorism, they also must know that what controls them is the water. After all, the Indus Basin gives them 24% of the GDP. It gives them 40% of their agriculture, the labor that goes over there. About 70% of the agriculture output is from there. If that be so, if that's so much important for them, the least they must understand that they cannot be remaining the hub of terrorism and continue to export terror to India. I don't think we shouldn't just bother one bit for whatever it is. Obviously, we can't store water, but we can control the distribution of water. We can divert water. We can distribute the way we want it. And that's what it is. They will get their water. But at what time, when, how, they wouldn't know it. And that is enough to put pressure on Pakistan. And that is where it pinches them. That is where it will hurt them. I think all means, whether political, whether it is economic, diplomatic, the Indus Water Treaty, all non-kinetics must be employed. War is a last resort. You know, the supreme art of war is to subdue the enemy without a fight. And therefore, Pakistan will be brought on its knees even without firing a bullet. It's already, we haven't done anything as yet. And you still find the kind of voices coming out of Pakistan, rattled, absolutely confused. They don't know. They talk in all kinds of languages, new missiles, we will do this, we will ensure the blood will flow if the water stops. Nothing of that they can do. This is the time to be able to tell Pakistan enough is enough. If not now, it's never. Because otherwise, you will find unnecessarily over the years, appeasement doesn't help. Pakistan is not a country for appeasement. They don't understand. They only understand this language. The language is tit for tat. You do this, we do that. If they have now gone and sat in the lap of China, then the acupressure will work. The Chinese way, acupressure. Press one and press the other. The Pakis will understand that this is the only way. Because otherwise, they will go around. The duplicity is there. You can see duplicity even in the Western world. You see duplicity all over. They say something, want to do something. They will stand by, sympathize with India, not criticize Pakistan, still release loan, $7 billion to be given to Pakistan by the IMF. They will release the last bit of $1 billion. Some means you will find America giving them $300 million for maintenance of the aircraft. All these kind of things everybody will do. With Pakistan, it's only India, and India alone can teach a lesson.
Yeah, Mr. Sharma, do you want? Can you encapsulate for our viewers on what kind of damage this abeyance will cause to Pakistan on different fronts? If, let's say, in the short term, India can only control the flow of the water to suit us and not to suit Pakistan, and then in the long term, India can control the storage of the water as well. What is the damage that the Pakistani economy is looking at?
One thing, we started with one thing, that treaty is unfair. Let me quote one sentence and one figure from which it will become clear that the treaty is unfair to India. Pakistan gets about 56% of the 6 rivers. The 6 rivers, there is the watershed area, that's a 56%. With us, it's about 31% of area, but we get only 20% of water. We should go for that in future. Indus Water Treaty 1 is gone. It will have to be Indus Water Treaty 2. If at all it comes about, it will have to be, we want at least 20 million acre feet or 15 from Chenab, and that will go after their jugular. Now you asked me the next question about, the main question was about what are the losses we are suffering, or what are the losses that Pakistan can be inflicted on Pakistan and will happen. Yes, Pakistan could suffer. Now the point is, as I'm talking to you, it is via mobile, and on that mobile there is data. Now there is no data going, so data deficiency will hit, because what happens if the data goes from your mobile, you can't have WhatsApp, you can't have images. There so many functions are compromised. In the similar manner, just on one thing, when the data deficiency is there on the Pakistan side, they cannot decide their crop patterns. They cannot decide what is going to happen and when it is going to come to them. So that data deficiency will put them in a very awkward position on every turn of. Right now it is summer and the rivers are in reverse, because most of the river waters is coming from glacial melts. But what will happen 6 months from now, in October or something, glacial melt will come down to a trickle. It will become a zero, almost a zero, and the river waters will come to a very hot. So today, if we are stopping water for 10 days, that is not going to make much of a difference to Pakistan. But when we hold water for 10 days, 10 days in winter, Pakistan will come down on its knees. So it's not actually able to relate to what is going to come on its side and what is going to be hit by in 6 months' time. So that is the most damaging part of it. That is the main thing. And 24%. Now it has to do Basmati. It earns $4 billion from America by exporting its goods. How will it decide what crop we will have? If we interrupt 2 crop cycles, it will not be able to export anything, because it will be food insecure. It will be insecure in terms of that we export something and then we import back. How do we feed our own people? So these psychological games, psychological things that are going to happen to them are giving them sleepless nights. And as far Shehbaz Sharif is concerned, Nawaz Sharif is concerned, General Asim Munir has put him in a daycare center. This guy is an imbecile basically, because the way he flails his arms and he talks, Shehbaz Sharif has lost all brains, and it is basically a country owned by Asim Munir.
Absolutely. Well, I don't think anybody could have put it better than that. I do thank Mr. Sharma for joining us. Our other guests will continue with us because we are shifting our focus also on just how global powers are now reacting more and more. As more and more time passes, there will be, of course, more and more responses that keep coming in. But even as tensions persist between the two countries, Pakistan is running pillar to post seeking refuge. And some of its global allies have come to its aid. Some others have been forced to pick sides. While frequents like Iran, Turkey and China have come to Pakistan's support, Russia has now thrown its weight behind India. In fact, a little while ago, Russian President Putin called Prime Minister Narendra Modi and emphasized support in India's uncompromising fight against terror. US, UK, France, Japan, Italy have also come forward in India's support. But we do know from history that these countries also have a tendency to expect India to de-escalate. India has got a shot in the arm now from Russia, but will that mean that there will be no pressure on India that is built or felt? So that's the question. Will India be pressurized? First up, the Russian president's call is important because it has changed the tone of the Russian message from a day ago. Russia's foreign minister, Sergei Lavrov, had said that disagreements must be settled on a bilateral basis by political and diplomatic means. But Russian president's message has been more categorical that the perpetrators of the heinous attack and their supporters must be brought to justice. Please note that he's talking about supporters also to be brought to justice. While many allies have extended support to India, the question is, will they continue to back India if it decides to take an aggressive military approach? US has asked Pakistan to act against terrorists on its soil. UK has extended support to India in its fight against terror. Israel, France and Japan have also extended support to India over the dastardly attack and the subsequent fight against terror. Italy too has expressed solidarity with India. But as time passes, could some of this fervor relent? On Team Pakistan is all-weather friend China, who has not only vowed to support Pakistan but has also delivered PL-15 missiles. Iran has sent its foreign minister to Pakistan. Turkey has deployed naval ships at Pakistan's port and of course has made the noises in support of Pakistan as well. And Malaysia has called for an independent and transparent probe. Azerbaijan has appealed to India to not act against Pakistan, which in some ways can be read as a threat as well. So the allies have picked sides. Will India be pressurized by all of these voices? On India's side, from Prime Minister Modi to External Affairs Minister Jai Shankar, India's leadership has made its intent amply clear.
We are committed to take firm and decisive action against terrorists and those who support them. We thank Angola for their support in our fight against cross-border terrorism.
आप सभी हमारे प्रधानमंत्री नरेंद्र मोदी जी को अच्छी तरह जानते हैं, उनकी कार्यशैली से भी अच्छी तरह परिचित हैं, उनकी दृढ़ता से भी अच्छी तरह परिचित। मैं आपको आश्वस्त करना चाहता हूं, प्रधानमंत्री मोदी जी के नेतृत्व में जैसा आप चाहते हैं वैसा हो कर रहे हैं।
We look for partners. We don't look for preachers. Particularly preachers who don't practice at home what they preach abroad. And I think some of Europe is still struggling with that problem.
Suresh Goyal, clear message as far as the Indian government is concerned. Couldn't get any more categorical than this?
Absolutely. We have sent the message very clearly to the international community all around there that it is time for them to choose whether they are our partners or they are going to preach us to de-escalate. I want to say one or two things here. And I'm not really concerned about what each country says or does not say really, because eventually it is going to be our war. It is going to be our response.
Yes.
And I'm saying something very carefully here. What is our objective? What is our strategic objective in action against Pakistan after Pahalgam? We have done the strategic strikes before. We have taken all kinds of action. We have done military action. But that military action has not been able to stop the terrorists from acting from the soil of Pakistan or the areas under control in Pakistan. They have still come. Hafiz Saeed is still roaming around there. So our strategic objective has to be degrade Pakistan's capacity to the extent that in future it cannot even imagine undertaking these kind of actions against India. We will be responsible for strengthening our own border management, border security, so that nobody can enter. But at the same time, Pakistan will have to be responsible, and will they the capacity to undertake these kind of operations will have to be degraded. Now, when I say this thing, there's a distinction to be made. We need to think from the angle of the right response and not just retaliation. Retaliation is part of it, but response to degrade Pakistan capacity is very important. And in that direction, it will have to be a combination of steps, not just one step. It will have to be a combination of steps, and it is in that process that we must make sure that the international community understands our sensitivities, understands our concerns, and comes with us. Economic warfare is part of it.
Yes, absolutely. And that is exactly the route that India has been taking so far.
And blocking the ports is another part of it. To ensure that the supplies do not reach Karachi port, to ensure that the civil aviation is effective, to ensure that Pakistan goes on the FATF and there are no financing. There is a whole slew of measures.
Yes. All of these measures, some of them have been taken, some of them are being mulled. Just the other day, last week, we were discussing IMF and FATF pressure that could be built by India, especially with regards to its grey listing and also the IMF loan. But Lieutenant General Sanjay Kulkarni, it is important what Mr. Goyal said. What is the strategic objective? One objective is very clear: break the back of Pakistan's economy, right? If its people suffer in that process, so be it. India has run out of its patience. But the other military objective is unclear. What do you think?
Shivani, what happened? There are multiple options, and war is the last option. As regards the ceasefire violations are concerned, they're continuing from Pakistan and retaliation by India. As long as it is a small arms fire, okay, we retaliate with small arms. As soon as they escalate to going to mortar and artillery fire, they'll get it back. So the war has already started. Now various options are being used and the various means are being used, like what Ambassador Goyal said: degrade Pakistan, bring them on its knees and make them realize, because Pakistan is economically shattered. What did the earlier chief say, Bajwa, before he left, that they didn't have enough diesel even for their tanks. Right now, what did Nizam Sethi said? The same thing. They can't last for more than 4 days after they'll be on their knees. So all these preparations that Pakistan is doing to prevent their perception that India is going to probably attack in the next 24 hours, 36 hours that have passed. I think the last 48 hours we are hearing the same thing, that India is going to attack in 24 and 36 hours. So they're exercising, they're doing all. So you find that the venom out of these snakes is already going to finish.
No, but sir, what is India's military objective? What could be India's military objective is still unclear. I know the government is not going to announce it quite openly, but what do you think could be India's? We have to have an end, right? Like Israel's military objective against Hamas has been very clear, that the entire Hamas leadership has to be exterminated, right? What is India's stop point?
See, the source of terror has to be destroyed. And what is that source of terror? Pakistan's army. That's very clear, that Pakistan's army is the source of terror. They are the hub of terrorism.
So how do we do that? How do we achieve that objective without a full-scale war?
See, in this particular thing, these objectives can't be spelled out, that we are going to hear, or in phase 1 we will do this, and in phase 2 we will do. No, all of it. It's a concerted action which would involve military actions, economic actions, diplomatic actions. The aim is to degrade, and that degradation of the Pakistan resources. And what is the one that helps Pakistan use terror? The Pakistan army. So what is the objective? India's objective would be to degrade the Pakistan's armed forces, and that is the ultimate thing. Ultimate. Again and again, I said the supreme art of war is to subdue the enemy without a fight. If they have no diesel for their tanks, if they have no means of communication, if their people from their army have already started deserting, you don't really need to go banging them, because they're already finished. They're on their knees already.
We have done nothing as yet, and still you find the kind of voices that are emanating from Pakistan, of a totally shaken up nation, a nation which is almost at lost 50% of the war. That's why it's going on, telling all the countries in the world, prevent India from completely disseminating her. Otherwise, Pakistan itself will get broken up into pieces like Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, Balochistan, Sindh and Punjab. That's the way we look at it now.
All right, absolutely. Thanks a lot, our guests, for joining us. We'll, of course, look forward to what other actions the government is planning in days to come. Sticking with the Pahalgam story, but the political aftermath of it, Congress leaders have expressed a range of views. While Congress party officially supports the government's actions against any perpetrators, some individual leaders have made controversial remarks. For instance, Karnataka Chief Minister Siddaramaiah questioned the necessity of war and criticized the government's security measures before turning back on his statement. Congress MLA Vijay Wadatiwar raised doubts about the victims' claims regarding the attack. Its social media team last week posted a headless pic of Prime Minister Narendra Modi, defended it all day only to delete it in the night. In response, the Congress party has distanced itself, emphasizing that the official stance is represented by party president Mallikarjun Kharge and leader of opposition Rahul Gandhi. But for some reason, the statements are not stopping. What could be that reason? Congress leaders don't listen to their own party heads? Or are they habitual and compulsive about making such statements? Take a look at some examples. Now, the CWC resolution says that the party stands fully with government and action that it would take. But UP Congress chief was seen mocking India's Rafale jets. CWC says not the time for politics, but former Punjab's Chief Minister Channi says where's the proof of the 2016 surgical strikes? Some Congress leaders were even insensitive enough to question the victims and their families' testimonies that terrorists specially targeted Hindus in this attack. First ask for surgical strikes proof and then say I was misunderstood. Does this work? Listen.
हमारे देश में आकर कोई बम गिरे पता नहीं चलेगा। कहते जी पाकिस्तान में हमने सर्जिकल स्ट्राइक किए थे, कोई कुछ नहीं हुआ, कहीं नहीं दिखे सर्जिकल स्ट्राइक, किसी को नहीं पता चला। अरे मैं तो हमेशा मांगता रहा हूं भैया, लेकिन आज देश के लोगों के जरूरत है उनके जख्मों पे मल्लम लगाने की। हम डिमांड करते हैं कि भैया कुछ करो, बताओ देश को कौन है आदमी और उनको सजा दो।
कांग्रेस पार्टी का स्टैंड बिल्कुल स्पष्ट है। कांग्रेस पार्टी सरकार के साथ है और मैंने आज प्रेस कॉन्फ्रेंस में भी किया कि कांग्रेस पार्टी सरकार के साथ चट्टान जैसे खड़ी है। सरकार उनका बंदे भेजें, उनके बंदे वापस बुलाएं, सरकार उनका पानी बंद करे, सरकार उनकी हवा बंद करे। हम हर तरीके से कड़े एक्शन में भी हर तरीके से कांग्रेस पार्टी सरकार के साथ है। और मेन इशू ये है कि जो मारे गए हैं उनको इंसाफ मिलना चाहिए।
Now comes the nimbu mirchi barb on India's defense strength. So is Congress's foul ultimately turning out to be Pakistan's gain? That's with our guests coming up.
अब राफेल ले आए, नींबू मिर्च बांधकर खड़ी किए हुए हैं। आपको याद होगा मैंने नहीं बांधा है, वो बांधा है इस केंद्र की सरकार ने बांधा है। रक्षा मंत्री ने नींबू मिर्च बांधकर खड़ा किया हुआ है। ये देख सकते हैं कि ये तब का नींबू मिर्च वाला मामला है। ये रक्षा मंत्री जी ने लटकाया, मैंने नहीं लटकाया।
राफेल तैयारे नींबू मिर्च बांध कर हैंगर में खड़े कर दिए गए हैं। उनका इस्तेमाल कब होगा?
जहां उस राफेल की गर्जना से पाकिस्तान थर्राया हुआ और डरा हुआ महसूस करता है, वहीं ये लोग उसका मजाक उड़ाने का प्रयास करके सेना का मनोबल गिराने का प्रयास करते हैं।
साथियों, एक रक्षा मंत्री के रूप में मेरा दायित्व है कि मैं अपने सैनिकों के साथ मिलकर देश की सीमाओं की सुरक्षा सुनिश्चित करूं। और मेरा यह दायित्व है कि अपनी सेना के साथ मिलकर देश के ऊपर आंख उठाने वालों को मुंहतोड़ जवाब दूं।
Siddharth Yadav of the BJP and Pooja Tripathi, spokesperson of the Congress party, joining us. Pooja, what's going on in the Congress party? Either the leaders are unwilling to listen or they just cannot stop themselves.
I think the Congress stand, the highest governing body of Congress, CWC, has passed a resolution. There was a circular by K.C. Venugopalji, and everybody has unequivocally stated that we are with the government in whatever action we take. We back government like rock solid, and this thing should not be an issue. This thing should not, somebody should not go on a press conference and saying that we are trying to, lessen the morale of the armed forces. What we really need to ask, as a Shivani, I want to ask on CNN News 18, what is government doing on the absolutely vile, atrocious and deplorable and shameful trolling that the Veer Nari, Himanshi Narwal is facing in...
No, don't change the subject. No, Pooja, don't change the subject.
I will not change the subject.
No, I'm sorry. Other non-party handles... One second, Pooja, what non-party handles are doing on X or anywhere else, you are bringing the attention to that, but you're unwilling to answer what your own Congress leader is doing. One second. No, one second. Let me rephrase my question. You are saying that everybody is following the CWC version of where the Congress party stands. Then what are these nimbu mirch jibes that Ajay Rai was throwing? What is the meaning of that?
As I've said, the highest governing body, CWC, has unequivocally said that we stand by the government.
Yes, I heard that.
And there is no if and buts on it. And leader of opposition is here. He took a press conference in Jammu and Kashmir too, and he attended the all-party meeting, which Prime Minister decided to give us miss. And that's where also everybody
said... So why are your leaders not listening to the party president and the leader of opposition?
No, it's not like that. I am saying, why are you taking up individually, picking up? Why is there no debate on Ravinder Rana making a reels with 10 and 12 security forces in Jammu and Kashmir?
Because there's a pattern here. Let's play out some of those statements. I've mentioned some of them. But let's play out some of those statements on our screen. The problem here is, and Rashid Kidwai, senior journalist who tracks the Congress very closely, is also joining us. Rashid Kidwai, the problem here is that that tweet, for example, all day the social media head kept defending it. Ultimately, it had to be deleted because it was not going in line with the face that the Congress party wants to present. And then you've got former Chief Minister Channi coming out and says, where is the proof of surgical strikes? Then another big leader, UP Congress chief, is saying, nimbu mirch laga ke Rafale jet baithe hue. These are not, these are not unknown leaders or unknown faces.
So Shivani, I think fundamentally there is a trust deficit between two major political parties. It is very unfortunate. I think the Congress must take, crack disciplinary whip on one or other to set an example. But it takes two to tango. There are a lot of instances. There were instances where the Congress was called as, Lashkar-e-Congress, or all kind of things were said about Congress. Here is a political party which is a responsible political party under whose leadership 3 decisive wars against Pakistan were fought and won. So therefore, there has to be acknowledgement that people who are in opposition, they also have a point to make. Of course, we all are committed to the Indian state, and political parties must have highest respect for Indian state. You may criticize the government, but you cannot criticize or undermine the majesty or the honor of Indian state. And that Congress leaders need to keep in mind. But Shivani, very quickly, I just want to remind you, 1962 conflict, none other than Mr. Atal Bihari Vajpayee had questioned, Nehru's handling of it, and he was rightly so. He was within his rights. And a special session of Parliament was called. I have documented during 1971 conflict with Pakistan, creation of Bangladesh. Bharatiya Janata Sangh held several demonstrations. Prime Minister Modi, who was a young man of 20, he was arrested for doing the Satyagraha. So what I'm saying is protest, questioning government, and all is very much part and parcel.
Absolutely. I don't disagree with you, Rashid Kidwai. My only problem is that Congress leadership keeps saying, please don't make these errant statements. They are the ones who have set a diktat for its party. We've seen Congress do it in the past too. After Pulwama, after Uri too. It was what it was. This time around, the unique situation is that Congress leadership is sending one message, but Congress leaders are doing exactly the opposite. They're not questioning the government in all of these statements they're making. Some of them are downright distasteful. For example, one Congress leader coming out and saying, where is the proof that Hindus were segregated? Are you seriously questioning the victims' testimonies? In this case, Ajay Rai is making fun and mocking Rafale jets. We all know the history of how long that deal took and everything that was done to derail that
The
deal.
least Congress can do is to issue some show cause notices.
No,
so that
and
people
their
get to know the leadership
their
business.
last letter that Pooja Tripathi is referring to very categorically said there will be disciplinary action if this continues, and yet it continues. So I'm only wondering what's going on in the Congress party. I'll come back to you in just a bit. Siddharth, the explanation from the Congress party is that we are only questioning the government.
Shivani, is this the way to question anything? Forget the government. Is Congress party, as my friend, my senior journalist was referring to, a responsible opposition party? Is that how a responsible opposition party acts? What is Rafale? Is Rafale a BJP's weapon? Is Rafale kept in the BJP's headquarters? Rafale is one of the strongest weapons that our Air Force has. It is one of the strongest weapons that the world dreads. It was one of those weapons which Pakistan was discussing in their TV debates, that India has Rafale, which shows the capability of India. Now what is Pakistan discussing in their TV debates? It is discussing that one chief of the principal opposition party of our country, the state chief of that, is balking the Rafale. Is that the message we are wishing to send? Is that what the Congress party wants? What is this good cop and bad cop situation in the Congress party? Someone would say that we are issuing letters. Someone would say in a meeting, someone would sit and say, no, we stand with the government. And then a member of parliament, a former chief of Jammu and Kashmir, Saifuddin Soz, will come and say that if they have not done it, we should take their word for it.
Yeah, that's not standing with the Indian government by any stretch of the imagination, Pooja.
By any stretch. Whose word should we take? Pakistan's word we should take. You are questioning what the victims are saying. You are questioning what the government is saying. You are questioning what the army is saying. That is not how an opposition party has to act, and you must not forget. You are an opposition party, but an opposition party of India.
Mr. Yadav,
you are not from Pakistan. You are from India.
Pooja.
Yeah, I want to correct Mr. Yadav. Nobody's questioning what army is saying. We have full faith in the glorious Indian Armed Forces and the government, which CWC resolution, the highest governing body of Indian National Congress, has passed a resolution backing the government. We are not the political party, who took press conferences in front of 2611 venue site and said, "Dikkat borders mein nahi, dikkat
what kind of political party
we are not doing that because we are not playing politics on that." And Shivani, however you may say that I'm diverting from the topic, I really want to raise it on the
every time it happens. What is Pakistan?
Minister of IT Ashwini Vaishnav doing on the absolute filth that's going on him?
You would not answer on questions.
Absolutely. No, I'm not diverting from the topic. She was a victim of Pahalgam 6 days into marriage, and she's a Veer Nari of the country. And Minister of IT Ashwini Vaishnav has to answer the country.
What is your party doing? What are your leaders doing?
What action are you taking on Ravindra Rana?
If anybody is doing that, it's totally condemnable. But the Congress party's official handle is saying, the Kerala Congress party's handle is saying, how is it possible that Pakistanis came in?
On accountability.
Would the Congress party now decide?
Against a terror state.
Why do you want to give a clean check?
Opposition parties are completely backing you.
Where
you
is this Pakistan frame coming from?
Opposition of the country.
The old Pakistan frame that you have.
Every day you come out. You just mentioned the Twitter post. I admit it on national television that it was wrong, and there was a whip that was issued by the party general secretary organization. But you're not fighting.
Okay, 1 second. Can I come in? The only question, Pooja, that is going to the Congress party today is, why is the party leadership failing to control these errant statements of its own leaders? Don't you think this is a problem when the Congress party has taken the stances it has taken, wants to present a united front, wants to present the right line that the party has taken, but its own leaders are derailing its message?
Cherry picking our statements. As I said, nobody is discussing Ravindra Rana's fancy Instagram reels with 10 to 12.
But that's not an answer to what is happening in your party.
That's what I'm saying. When I talk about Congress, CWC is the highest governing body led by Mallikarjun Kharge ji, and we have unequivocally, look at Rahul Gandhi. He cut short his Boston trip, and from Delhi he didn't go to his home. He went to Kashmir.
Then why are the leaders doing what they're doing? All credit to all the right steps. I have only a minute. 1 second, Rashid Kidwai, I want to throw that question to you as an observer. What's going wrong in the Congress party? Why is it unable to crack the whip on its own leaders?
Because, Shivani, there is so much of, I would say, I don't want to use that word, but there is so much of dislike, the intense dislike with the the other side, the other party, that being the BJP. And even if you see this debate, the kind of thing, again, the reference to Congress's alleged Pakistani friends and all was made. What I'm saying is, it is not, madbhed, it is manbhed. And it is very deep rooted. It's very unfortunate. It comes out.
Okay.
And it's the cost of the nation. So the Congress must crack a whip.
Yes. Finish, please.
Yeah, I'm saying the Congress must crack a whip, but the BJP would be better off as a responsible national party not to mock Congress that as if it is anti-national.
Okay, all right. I'll leave it at that.
What have I done for their leaders to come out and say that we should take Pakistan's word for it?
You cannot
What has the
term
BJP done?
national opposition party Lashkar-e-Pakistan.
We should at least take a neutral position so things which are blatantly prima facie wrong. It is prima facie wrong. What more explanation does it require?
The whole country is watching it 11 days.
Okay, all right. I've run out of time. I do thank all of our guests for joining us. Shifting away to some breaking updates that are coming in, MHA, the Home Ministry, has asked several states to conduct mock drills for items for effective civil defense on May 7. Following measures will be undertaken, and I'm listing out those measures. Operationalization of air raid warning sirens, training of civilians, students, etc. on the civil defense aspects to protect themselves in the event of a hostile attack. Number 3, provision of crash blackout measures, provision for early camouflaging for vital plants and installations, updation of evacuation plan and its rehearsal. This is what my colleagues Payal Mehta and Aman Sharma have gathered from the government. This is, I believe Payal is through with us. Payal, this can only be read as a full-blown war preparation.
Well, of course, this is huge breaking information coming in, with the fact and everything now you can join the dots. The Prime Minister giving a freedom to all our forces. Then the Prime Minister holding separate meetings with the defense personnel in respective, whether it's the Navy, whether it's the Army, or of course it's the Air Force. And the Prime Minister's meeting this morning with the Defence Secretary, and now this information coming in from the Ministry of Home Affairs. We just reported a short while ago, Shivani, that the Home Secretary had in fact reached the Prime Minister's office here in South Block. And of course, a series of meetings were going to begin. The NSA was also there as well. This is big information coming to the fore. India preparing itself, essentially not giving out the details and saying that various states need to take this measure, going that because we know very well should we do anything against Pakistan. Pakistan is also expected to retaliate and come back as well. And Pakistan, of course, has friends in neighbor countries like China as well. And they, of course, have access to the eastern and northeastern provinces that India really has as well. So, of course, this is big news coming into the fore. And, of course, we still are waiting for the official details as to what the Indian government wants to do. But the indications are extremely clear and the writing seems to be on the wall. And if anybody is extremely nervous right now, it should be Pakistan.
Yes. Aman Sharma is also joining us. Aman, I think, we quote the demographics in India very often and how young the country is. It is very likely that majority of the population has never really seen any war. The last full-scale war was 1971. After that in Kargil was a localized conflict in Kashmir. This is going to be new for most of its citizens, all of these trainings, etc.
Well, absolutely, Shivani. The kind of measures which have been spelled out by the MHA to several states, this is clearly preparing for any eventuality. These are clearly war-related measures, operationalization of air raid warning sirens. These sirens go off when there are enemy air raids in our big urban centers or in our, bordering areas. But this has been given to several states. So, the government wants to prepare for any eventuality, training of our civilians, our students on how to protect themselves in the event of an hostile attack, how to provide for blackout measures. So if there are air raids, over our cities in the night, the blackout is going to happen. So the provisions, do they exist for a complete blackout? When are the administration prepare for it? Camouflaging our vital plants, our installations, our power installations, our other key installations, and updation of the evacuation plan. That what will be the evacuation plan if there is such a strike, rehearsal of the same. Clearly, India is preparing, keeping every eventuality in mind. This whole exercise is going to happen on 7th May, which is day after tomorrow. So clearly, as Payal was explaining, we can join the dots that since last 1 week, there have been repeated meetings by the Prime Minister with the Navy Chief, with the Air Force Chief, with the Army Chief. Today he's met the Defence Secretary, he's met the NSA, he's met the Home Secretary. The government has said it But if there is a counter strike, the government is now preparing for any eventuality, Shivani.
Yes, absolutely. I do thank Payal and Aman for breaking down more on that big breaking that we're tracking. Certainly, there is a directive now to prepare the civilian population and also the defense mechanism for protection of key installations and also civil defense. On that note, time for me to take your leave. My colleague Anand Narasimhan is joining you after a very short break.
Co-powered by
The Kashmir Tigers had claimed responsibility for the attacks in Jammu's Doda and Kathua districts in July of 2024. They had signalled their active presence since then. Jaish's key operational base seems to be in Balakot. That's what the intelligence agencies are now looking at, and that's under investigation. Pakistan's Balakot is a key operational base for JEM's activities. Specifically, the Jamia Aisha Siddiqui Islamia Madrasa. That's where all of these activities emanate from, is what agencies believe. It is managed by Abdul Majid Suleimani, a senior Jaish commander whose code name is Majid Suleimani. This madrasa spans across about 2 to 3 acres. It includes facilities like teaching rooms, a mosque and residential quarters as well. This madrasa is believed to serve as a recruitment and logistical hub for Kashmir Tigers and Kashmir Freedom Army, which are nothing but proxies for the Jaish-e-Mohammed. Plans to expand their infrastructure are also under the radar of Indian intelligence agencies. The funding of these madrasas is believed to be managed by Jaish terrorist Soleimani's UK-based brother, who channels donations from the Saudi Arabia into Pakistan. Not just that, Jaish and its offshoots maintain close ties with the ISI as well. The Refugee Management Cell, called the RMC, is in Muzaffarabad. It's under tight security of the Pakistani army. The ISI is in the know as well. The RMC provides logistical supply like groceries, safe haven to these terrorists, to these refugees as they call them, that are being shielded by the Pakistani deep state. Siddhant now joins us, getting us more details on this. Siddhant, as far as this nexus of the Jaish-e-Mohammed, the Lashkar-e-Toiba and the proxy groups that they're now using, they're trying to create newer faces, trying to create newer fronts, but none of it is going to go under the radar as far as India's agencies go.
Well, that's right, Poonam. But the whole idea of floating these new fronts is to evade international sanctions. Perhaps, now TRF stands exposed. In fact, this time around, Pakistan could manage to save TRF given its due to its membership at UNSC. Perhaps that is what Foreign Minister Ishaq Dar claimed the other day while speaking in the House. But these groups have been exposed by the Indian side. That these groups are Pak sponsored, and in fact they are working for terror groups like Lashkar-e-Toiba and Jaish-e-Mohammed. In fact, now Manoj Gupta is bringing for us that the new face of Jaish-e-Mohammed in Kashmir, they have rebranded the networks and in fact their covert operations. In fact, after global bans and increased scrutiny, Jaish-e-Mohammed now operates through proxy groups like Kashmir Tigers and Kashmir Freedom Army. So these are the two new groups. Perhaps I think this is the first time that we are breaking this information for our viewers. In fact, Jaish is going to grip through special fronts and covert infrastructure in Pakistan and Pakistan-occupied Jammu and Kashmir, Poonam. In fact, JEM has a history of rebranding under names like Khudamul Islam Al Rahmat Trust to circumvent bans. In fact, its latest avatar, Kashmir Tigers and Kashmir Freedom Army, continue its mission to destabilize Kashmir while masking their affiliation with JEM. These offshoots will operate under social covers like madrasas, Hajama Center. Islamic preaching networks are used to recruit, train and radicalize individuals while avoiding exposure. In fact, Kashmir Tigers earlier claimed responsibility for attacks in Jammu's Doda and Kathua. Balakot is a key operational base for the Jamia Aisha Siddiqui Lilibanat Islamia Madrasa in Balakot. Right. This is managed by Abdul Majid Suleimani. This madrasa spans 18 to 19 canal and includes facilities like teaching room, mosque and residential quarters. So what Manoj Gupta's story is telling us, Poonam, that given international sanction and pressure from the international community, Jaish-e-Mohammed is rebranding its network by giving them fresh names, perhaps to evade international sanctions. And these groups are very much linked with madrasa Khalsas in the Pak-occupied Kashmir. Perhaps they have a proper training center, camps for them to be trained. So, each time around with each passing year, these groups, whether it's Lashkar-e-Taiba or Jaish-e-Mohammed, both these groups believe in rebranding and coming up with the proxy groups and frontal groups to carry out terror attacks in India.
Absolutely. To put this in perspective for our viewers and get a sense of how exactly they're trying to do this via these proxies, this is how Jaish is trying to get a grip through social media to these fronts to covert infrastructure in Pakistan and Pakistan-occupied Kashmir. Terror groups have a history of rebranding under several names. We've seen that happening here with the PFI or the formerly banned Simi as well. That's the same kind of module that operates with all of these groups in Pakistan. They followed a similar strategy in the valley. Their latest avatars, like I pointed out, were the Kashmir Tigers and the Kashmir Freedom